When the world went gray prologue, joy, happiness, life, creation, the spark of beginning, the heartbeat of earth itself, the endless manifestation of color and beauty and light, blossoming, growing, unfurling into something infinite. And then, one day, nothing. The world, once bursting with radiance, was swallowed whole, devoured by an oblivion so complete that even memory faded to grayscale, leaving behind only the cruel, inescapable taunt of black and white, a silent mockery of what once was, shadows of what had been clung to the charred land beyond our shelter, reaching with desperate fingers toward a sky that had long since turned its back. And as the relentless nothingness took and took and took, we were left only to bear witness, to suffer in the empty remains of what we had destroyed. And as the world faded to monochrome, I became one of the countless shades of despair. Our city, once flooded with bustling citizens driving cars of every color, is reduced skeletal frames of buildings and cracked roads. A cruel reminder of the countless nights I spent, sleepless, hidden away in my attic, thriving off the colors coating my paint palette. The word around us hasn't just been burned, it's been erased, the vibrancy stripped away. I look around our underground shelter, and for people struggling to survive, everyone was perfectly content with making conversation from the concrete where they sat, as if they weren't on their deathbeds. We scrape by with the rations the leaders distribute weekly, our bodies weakened by hunger, our minds fractured by the unbearable monotony of a world without color. But it isn't the hunger or paranoia that haunts us, but the weight of absence, the memories of color fading with each passing, dissolving to add to the torture of the ash flakes contaminating the air. Black, white, gray, repeat, every damn time. And then I find myself thinking the same, though I thought, since the day the world was drained of color. This is a dream. Colors can't just disappear. And yet, here we were in this mere sketch of what was a vast land that stretched on through the remains of the nuclear tragedy, colored in shades of ash and bone, where nothing grows and nothing dares to blossom. For now, I resort to my only escape, my eyelids suddenly feeling too heavy, my mind too weary. Symptoms we've long since accepted as the norm, and allow myself to relax against the concrete wall. Part 1. Rations are low. Too low. A small group of us was sent into the depths of our despair to scrounge together enough food to ensure our, at the least, survival. Survival doesn't always grace the entirety of our measly society, and it's unfortunate. But death, even at 17, is not an unfamiliar fate. I look out into the rubble, finally lifting my eyes from my sneakered feet for the first time since they stepped beyond the shelter's entrance. The land is silent. The only sound, the crunching of boots landing against who knows what, and the whipping wind nipped at my skin, scattering my once auburn-streaked hair across the back of my jacket. Black, white, gray, rep. A gleam catches my eye. We're at the edge of the ruins. That's impossible. My feet are already betraying me, already venturing closer to this foreign feeling of freedom. 5 years ago was the last time I was graced with the presence of color. 5 years since the bombs. 5 years since this world was diminished to a mere grayscale. 5 years. For color to still exist would be out of the question. I track the glistening spark of hope, forcing my eyes to stay open, forcing my feet one in front of the other until, where'd it go? I blink. Scanning the scene, my eyes dart frantically from each piece of Colorly's scrap to the next. Come on. Come on. Come, nothing. The unmistakable feeling of wilted grass prickles at my knees as they hit the ground where it was. The hope of color in an achromatic world slipped through my hoary fingers like sand slipping through the grasp of the ocean's spray continuously. Elara? Sienna, one of the other young scavengers ask, kneeling down in front of me. You okay? I blink back tears I didn't know were welling, forcing composure I don't have, even as I feel the feather-light touch of Sienna's hand on my shoulder. I know I can tell Sienna the truth. She did take me in after the bombs killed my parents, but to burden her would be to break myself in the process. Yeah, my voice is breathy, as if I'm questioning my own answer, while letting the first one that comes to mind slip past my lips. If anyone is going to believe me, it's going to be her. She is the only family I have left, after all. I thought I saw color. Sienna's muted, but still striking. Once blue eyes go wide, clawing to clench onto the sliver of hope and clinging onto it like a lifeline. Anything, everything. She leans closer, the shoulder-length, ashy hue filling her head, now slipping past her ear. If anyone can find it, it's you. She said it like it was the easiest thing in the world, but that was just the way Sienna made everything seem. Easy. Like it wasn't the sight reignites a desperate hope, a longing to believe that life, in its fullest form, is not truly gone. Part 2. I can't pretend like it didn't happen. I can't unsee it. I know it's risky. I know there are people here who need every last bit of help they can get. But if there's a better, beautifully vivid world out there, inching to be found, it needs to be found. So here I am, in the thick, inky embrace of the dead of night, my fingers curling tightly around the worn, chilled rungs of the ladder that stretches upward like a fragile, rust-bitten bridge to a world I have long since sworn, with every fiber of my being, to unravel, to tear apart piece by piece, if that's what it takes, all in pursuit of that elusive, flickering glint, something small, something distant, something that once dared to catch and hold the fleeting light of a bleached and weary sun. Because if there is one truth I refuse to let slip through the cracks of time, it is that color, in all its wild, untamed brilliance, is not just an indulgence, not merely an ornament to be admired from afar, but a necessity, a lifeblood that the world not only craves, but deserves to be drenched in, to be wholly consumed by. And if it is within my grasp to bring it back, to pry it from the hands of whatever force dares to smother it, then I will chase it, seize it, and deliver it without hesitation, no matter the cost. Singed, sealed, delivered. Address: a monochrome world once called Earth, surrounded by rubble. I step out into the spotted sky and let the chill of a rare wind smack me right in the face, a stark contrast to the warmth seeping across my chest. I shake my head at myself and how I utterly disregarded the warnings of the other survivors, and so effortlessly snuck out of the security of our shelter into the wasteland so eagerly. I glance around the land stretched out before me, waste crowding the ground and ashes polluting the air, and I swear the hues of gray, now illuminated by stars and a moon, that appeared as dots and a waning semicircle, were darker than black, everything meshing with the ink-stained sky. I will find it. I'll find it, if it kills me. I will. Then, just beyond the endless stretch of night, a shimmer, the faintest trace of warmth against the cold monotony. It's real, I murmur, though no one is around to overhear. It has to be. Part 3. I walk for hours, and it still feels like I've gone nowhere. I'm still surrounded by the gray void, still surrounded by remains of a better life, and still with the shimmering speck of hope before me, not stopping. The landscape is an endless graveyard of the past. Twisted steel, collapsed buildings, and roads that crack beneath my feet stretch on like the bones of a forgotten civilization. Everything is still. No birds cry overhead, no wind whispers through trees, because there are no trees left to whisper through. The silence is heavy, pressing against me like the weight of the sky itself. I huff, pressing my back against a crumbling door, not bothering to look at the house, but rather the swing set across the road, peering intently as it swings back and forth in the stillness of night, moved by something unseen. Perhaps the ghost of the child who cherished it. A sigh slips past my lips at the tempting offer of sleep, but refusing to give in quiet yet, I push my weight forward. My feet drag, weighing me down. Black, white, great repeat. It's infuriating that I can't close the distance between me and my last hope of color. My eyes snag on a reflection in the road. My pace quickens. My footfalls echo in the empty, colorless world as I near the glinting surface. A mirror, cracked, dirt-speckled, abandoned in the middle of the road, like it doesn't belong. Like nothing belongs. I slow, breathing hard. My reflection stares back at me, distorted by the fractures spider-webbing across the glass. The same dull world is behind me, the same lifeless sky above. But beneath me, just beyond the cracks, something else. Green, my breath catches. A patch of grass, impossibly vivid, bleeding through the reflection, as if it exists in another world, as if it's real, somewhere, somehow. I step forward, heart pounding, kneeling at the mirror's edge. My fingers hover over the glass. The colors look too bright, too alive, like they'd burn if I touched them. But I don't hesitate. I kick the mirror. It shatters under my heel with a sharp, crystalline crack. Splinters of glass scatter across the road, glinting like stars in the empty light. I brace myself for something, anything. A shift in the air, a tremor in the ground, a door opening where there was none before. But when I look down, the green is gone, just shards of broken glass, catching the darkened sky in their edges. Just my own reflection, fractured into 100 jagged pieces. I lurch forward, scraping at the road where the mirror used to be. Nothing. No hidden portal. No sliver of color left behind. My hands shake. Tears, clear wetness, drip down my cheeks in slowed fashion. My breathing comes in clipped gasps. I saw it. I know I did. The wind stirs, sending a few stray fragments skittering away. I watch them disappear down the road, swallowed by the nothingness stretching endlessly ahead. And then I keep walking, pushing harder, further, relentless. Part 4. I refuse to let myself stop. I won't. I can't. Not if I want any chance at finding the color I've recklessly craved. My eyes follow the path I left in the dust, the sun rising higher in the sky, and then Thunk. The ground hits me before I can brace for it. Pain shoots through my skull in sharp, electric volts. I glance up, dazed, and see the thick trunk of the tree I just slammed into, its rough bark pressing into my chest, pinning me to the earth. I wince, trying to push myself up, but my head swims with dizziness. The tree stands tall, towering over me like an ancient sentinel, its branches casting long shadows in the early morning light. I can feel its strength, as if it's mocking my weakness, daring me to rise again. I press my palms to the ground, leaves crunching beneath them, and accept this tree's challenge. The rough earth presses against my skin, grounding me in this moment, daring me to rise. A chill runs through my spine as I push myself up, dirt clinging to my fingertips. The air is thick, damp, charged with something unseen but undeniable. Prepared to confront the tree, I stand to my feet and ball my fists, the tension in my body coiling like a spring. I'm ready. My knuckles tighten, breath steadying, until a sharp, almost imperceptible sting pricks at my palm. Crunch. My hand flattens instinctively, fingers twitching as I feel the sensation spread. The leaves, crisp and brittle, stick to my skin like they belong there. A brief annoyance flickers through me, and I almost brush them off without a second thought, until something stops me cold. The color, not gray, not black, not the dry, lifeless husks of darkness. These leaves are green. It's faint, fading, dying, but it's there. The realization steals the breath from my lungs. Green here, among the decay. Color still exists, but it is fading. The world is not truly black and white. It is dying in slow motion. The nuclear bombs did not erase color. It severed life's connection to it, leaving only those who remember it to witness its vanishing. A smirk, one I haven't worn since the day of the bombs, breaks across my lips. It all makes sense. I have to find the color. I have to find the... What about everyone else? What about Sienna? I cut myself off, bending to gather a handful of dull leaves from the ground. Sienna would want this. If anyone can find it, it's you. My grip on the leaves tightens, as if I can hold on to her words. Onto her for guidance, like I always have, and I intend to do just that. One step for hope, another for faith, 2 steps for a new life, another for Sienna, and then I'm sprinting, not daring to look back. Finn, dead girl walking. Nobody knows that I've been bit. Nobody can know. They'll kill me, and I wouldn't blame them. I wouldn't feel betrayed if my own sister put a gun to my head and pulled the trigger if she found out. I would do the same, because it is the right thing to do. the safe thing to do. So I'm biding my time. It may be selfish what I'm doing, but in this apocalyptic world, it's every man for himself, or every woman, in my case. Hurry up, Nevada. Tristan wants those potatoes by yesterday. We're having a feast. I snap out of my thoughts and go back to peeling the last potato. I'm basically done. Here, take them. She picks up the metal bowl and walks out of the house. All the makeshift houses were built in a big circle after the apocalypse, so we're all like one big family. Our house isn't much. A run-down cabin, really, in the middle of a field that's in the center of the great woods. That's where I was bit. It was my fault, but I just couldn't help myself. Thomas. The very thought of him makes my eyes tear up and makes me reach for my locket. A picture of the two of us on our 2-year anniversary inside. He was one of the first to turn. I visited him often, but I never crossed the electric fence. I sang to him. I talked to him, sure that he was listening. Until one day, I couldn't help myself. 3 days ago, I turned the fence off for a split second in the middle of the night, and I climbed over. I've missed you, I had told him, and he looked at me with pure love until he grabbed me by my wrist and then my waist. "Thomas!" I screamed, but he never responded. He threw me to the ground, and I realized that he wasn't looking at me with love. He looked at me with hunger, with fury, and he bit me. I screamed and screamed until he let me go, but not before tearing a piece of my midsection out. He felt pity, and he ran. I crawled back through the fence, and I turned it back on. I couldn't get help, so I stitched it up myself. I wrapped it in bandages and threw the bloody shirt far over the fence. I brush my fingers past the stitches as I remember. I wince at the pain. My plan is to wait until the last moment. Then in the middle of the night, like so many other times, I'll sneak off to the fence. But this time, I'll go over and I won't come back. It's best this way. Nobody has to suffer. They won't kill me or throw me to the zombies before I'm ready. My sister will think I was eaten by a bear. Or maybe they'll tell her that I got drunk and fell off a cliff. She wouldn't be surprised. My lips have touched more whiskey than water since Thomas turned. I walk out of the house and towards the crowd of people gathering in the center of the house circle. A big table is in the very center. I go up to Evangeline, my sister, who is setting up the tables. "Why the big celebration?" She looks up from the utensils and napkins. "He wants to celebrate nobody being infected in the last year." She hesitates. Thomas marks the last person bitten. My eye twitches, but Eva doesn't seem to notice. I walk away from her without another word. I cannot hurt them. I cannot hurt Ava like this. I will leave tonight, after the feast, so I can have one last goodbye. I go back inside our house and get out my best outfit, the only dress that I had left, and my bright diamond heels, the most expensive thing I still had. My mother and father had gifted them to me before they were killed. Not by zombies, by a human, long before the apocalypse even started. I've never worn them to try and preserve them, just in case the apocalypse ever ended. I had a false hope that someday things would be normal again, and I would graduate or have my wedding in diamond heels. But I messed everything up. Eva will get my heels. She's begged for them for years, but I'm wearing them to the feast. Night falls quickly, and the people have put torches up next to every house, and at the corner of the feasting table, I serve myself a tall glass of liquor. I don't want to feel anything when the zombies take me. I can see the townspeople eyeing me and then staring at my drink. Everybody in town knows about me. The girl that used to have the kindest eyes and a bubbling personality. The girl whose eyes have lost their shimmer, whose soul has turned bitter. The girl who kept to herself inside her house and plugged her ears at every town gathering. Until now. It's good to see you, Nevada, Tristan says from behind me. I turn my head around and smile at him. Yes, it is. It's a lovely night that you've arranged for the town. He laughs. It's what I do best, sweets. I smile at that, my nickname since I was a little girl. I'll miss Tristan. He walks over to greet a couple that just approached the table. I look around the field to see happy people, dancing and singing, drinking, eating, and cheering. Oh God, what am I still doing here? It's not just my bite that could infect them. It's me. I've been infecting the town, my sister, and Tristan. I don't fit here anymore. I suck up their happiness. I don't belong. I have to leave right now. I quickly find Eva and ask her to walk with me. What's wrong, Nevada? I flash my most convincing smile at her. Nothing. Just wanted to spend some time with you. She looks at her feet. I love you. You know that, right, kid? I ask her. She looks up at me and smiles. I love you too, no matter what. She hugged me tightly. The first hug she had given me in over a year, and I hugged her back. Listen, Ava, I started. I'm sorry for not being there for her skin. It smells delicious. Her eyes, they're so pretty. I want to know what they would look like in between my teeth. And I bite her, and a couple drops of blood flow from her cheek and into my mouth. I greedily gulp it down, and I crave more. I want to hurt her. I have to hurt her. So I bite deeper, and then she starts to scream. It's an agonizing and ear-piercing scream. I am startled by the scream, and I jump back. And the split second is all I needed to snap out of it. No. No, no. It was never supposed to be like this. I wasn't supposed to hurt her. I run to get help, spitting her blood out of my mouth and wiping my face with my sleeve. I run as fast as I can. "Tristan!" I scream. "Please! Anybody!" I need them to kill me, or to help Eva, if they can. Tristan looks up and walks towards me. A crowd gathers around him, muttering, afraid. "What is it, Nevada?" he asks, obviously agitated. Suddenly the crowd behind him gasps, and Tristan whips his gun out from its holster. I prepare to be shot, but quickly realize he isn't pointing it at me. His gun is pointed at Eva. She is slowly crawling towards us, blood streaming down her face, and an obvious bite marks her cheek. "No, don't shoot her," I scream, and try to lunge towards Tristan. "She's infected," he says as he shoves me off. Eva looks up at me, hurt. There is agony and fear in her eyes, but the thing that she feels most is clear: betrayal. Tristan pulls the trigger. Once, twice, and a final time. I fall to the ground beside her. Bullet holes pierce her small body. She's dead. She hasn't turned yet, but they killed her. She's dead forever. What have I done? Tristan and another man drag me off of her, and Tristan pulls me into a tight hug, forcing me to face away from her body. But I feel no guilt anymore. I want to rip Tristan's flesh off of his bones. I want to taste his tendons, his blood. I push away from him. I can't hurt another person. "Shoot me, Tristan." He looks at me perplexed. "What? No, no, I'm not going to shoot you. You can't ask me to take your life." I look up at him. No tears in my eyes, no shame, only hunger and rage. "I bit her, so shoot me too." Tristan raises his gun again, but hesitates. I'm already turned. It won't kill me. I slide my heels off and place them in the grass. The crowd follows my every move. Bury Evangeline in these. I sit in the grass and nod at Tristan, instructing him to pull the trigger. His hand shakes as he walks towards me, pressing his gun to my temple. "Goodbye, Nevada," he says, forcing a smile. But I can see his eyes are full of tears. I look straight into his eyes, and his mention of my name, not my nickname, my old life, snaps me back to reality. I sob, big and ugly sobs, and I only cry harder at the sight of my dead sister. I don't want to be shot, I shout. But Tristan doesn't move his gun. I know. Just close your eyes and don't think about it. I hear a sob creeping into his throat. So I just do as he says. I shut my eyes and wring my hands together. Say hello to Thomas for me, sweets. He whispers in my ear, and everything goes quiet. I wake up to birds chirping, wind blowing through the trees, and the sight of my Thomas. Thomas! I jump up, but I feel a pounding headache. I put my hand to my forehead and feel a steady stream of blood coming from a bullet. But I don't care. Thomas is here. He holds my face. I've missed you, love. A blinding light at the end of my nightmare. Eddie, it's bedtime, Mama would shout at me, shaking me out of my intense focus as I stared at the television set. She would add, I don't know why I let you watch those shows. You only end up peeing in your bed because of your nightmares. Feeling embarrassed in front of my older sister, I would respond in self-defense. You would get the heebie-jeebies from Alfred Hitchcock, too. Mama, he is the master and hero of all that is dark and sinister. She would not have any of it from a 10-year-old. Eddie, enough of your mouth. Get to bed. And that was the end of our discussion until tomorrow night. Reluctantly, I trudged upstairs to my bedroom. I had my normal ritual for going to bed. No, it was not brushing my teeth or washing my face. I would search every corner of my room, looking for suspicious evidence that creatures were patiently hiding for their next meal. Me. Once I canvassed every nook and cranny, I would slither under my covers, imagining that it represented a force field from all supernatural beings and beasts. Feeling some assurance that I was safe, I would drift off to a light sleep. A scraping branch against the house, a creaking pipe, a howling wind, or murmuring voices would be enough to rustle me out of my delicate slumber. I would wake with a start and repeat my ritual. Then, for the rest of the night, fall in and out of sleep. I figured a gruesome beast must have taunted me, because, unfortunately, it was very damp between my sheets when I awoke in the morning. Like any other morning, my sister would offer up her compliments. You look like hell. Eddie, did you wake up in the jaws of a monster this morning? Did you have to swim out of your bed? I turned to her with a sardonic grin, saying, Be careful, or my swamp monster might swim in your bed some night. She looked at me with disgust, saying, Eddie, you are so revolting. My breakfast then proceeded without interruption. However, this morning would be different. After my sister left for school, my parents decided to have a heart-to-heart talk about my viewing and sleeping habits. They had planned this out well, because no counter-argument I mustered up would change their plans about my immediate future. I understand parents want the best for their children, but I felt they were overstepping their bounds by compelling me to see a psychiatrist about my problem, my incontinence problem. At least, that was what I thought it would be about. The ruse to see a psychiatrist was not for incontinence, but for treatment of my obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, and insomnia. Apparently, my parents were keenly aware of my behavior at night. I was not aware the behaviors manifested themselves during daytime at school. My teachers were decidedly concerned, requesting my parents to intervene and find treatment for my disorders. My psychiatrist was empathetic to my interests and actually encouraged me to continue in my pursuit of thriller, scary, shock movies, games, and activities. He was so impressed that I could nearly remember all of my dreams, especially the nightmares. Nonetheless, he prescribed some medication to help tone down the OCD tendencies. His counseling therapy helped me to focus on self-control and restraint of successive, redundant behaviors. Some medicinal assistance also helped with the quality of my sleep and significantly reduced the incidence of my incontinence and snarky comments from my sister in the mornings. As the years passed, I was better. I felt rejuvenated. I was able to manage my thoughts and actions even when I immersed myself in my hobby of collecting horror movies, stories, and the like. My dreaming remained vivid. Occasionally, I would wake during the night in a cold sweat. No night terrors. No hysterical yelping at night. Some of my dreams I would not remember the next day. Nonetheless, there were a few dreams over the years that plagued me. Most were insanely comically, like an elephant falling out a skyscraper window, landing directly on top of me. Another version had an upright piano doing the same thing. Still other crazy times had killer cows or piranha fish walking on land stalking humans. Nightmares with zombies, ghosts, or ghouls did not upset me. What was extremely disturbing to me was not knowing the source of the terror or evil. One such time, the gruesome source was found in a howling wind, which would transform itself into an array of terrifying beings, creatures, and nondescript things like a smothering ooze. I questioned why this malady of nightmares still plagued me. It was after such reflection on my condition, I decided to make good use of this nocturnal problem. I focused my career on writing horror stories, potential movies, frightening, dramatic plays. I became so good at my skills, I had the audacity to self-publish several stories. To my amazement, a producer in Hollywood got a hold of one of my published stories. Before I realized it, I had a smash horror hit on the big screen and a job creating writing, and directing all kinds of media horror. I had made it to the big time. Blinding lights flashed all around me as cameras captured my profile at my film premieres. My fiendish ideas were making a huge success and making me rich. I was still actively struggling with my insomnia despite my success. A deep sleep was rare for me. I shrugged it off as a consequence of the pressures of Hollywood and being recently married to a harlot of a wife. I shared with my therapist about how gruesome and sinister my nightmares had become. Yet, I justified those nightmares by citing how they were good fodder for my films and future ventures. I remained undaunted as I counted my gold. My career was literally driving me mad with ghoulish creativity. After all, they were just dreams. Maybe bad ones, but just dreams. They would remain in an ethereal state of mind until I gave them life. Already, the holidays were knocking at the door. In Hollywood, one determines the seasons by the storefront displays on Rodeo Drive and Melrose Avenue. Christmas was a mere month away. I was hoping this year the holidays would provide a peaceful respite from the hustle and bustle of shopping, my dreams, and all else. I was looking forward to the splendor of the season, bringing me some peace and much-needed rest from my constant night terrors. A few friends tried to coax me to attend church services to aid in my recovery. I declined. Churchy stuff was just not on my agenda this or any holiday season. With the house decked out in a few feeble decorations and no annoying carolers singing at my door, I decided to cozy up in my recliner for a peaceful nap, or so I thought. All of the pressure of my job and the haunting dreams had taken its toll on my body. I fell asleep instantly. I am not sure how much time had passed, but I awoke to a strong smell of sulfur, followed with a blast of very hot air. I felt something was wrong as I rose from my recliner. At first, I thought it might be a fire, but my immediate surroundings were strangely altered. Any light in the room quickly faded. It was nearly pitch black. A pinpoint of light emerged from a distance. It grew larger as it advanced toward me. Strangely, the light spoke to me. From the day you entered this world, and now to your grave, your soul has been marked for me. This is the beginning of eternity for you. You are now my child of the darkness. You are now a prisoner in my realm of depravity, defeat, and despair. Your soul is a good fit because of your perverted thoughts and sinister desires of your corrupted heart. I was stunned. I stammered out a question at the light. Who are you, and why are you visiting me? I heard clattering noises and voices in the background. The light said, I have several names. I am known as the day star, the morning star, Lucifer. In a bellowing, prideful voice, it said, "I am the accuser." Instantaneously, a terrifying dragon appeared, hissing fire and sulfurous acid as it spoke these words. "I am Satan, the deceiver and devourer of the whole universe." I was incredulous and could not speak. The dragon continued on. "I am here because it has been your desire to delve deeper into all things purely evil and wicked. Ever since you were a child, you set your things on devilish, depraved images. I filled your mind with them, but you were never satisfied, always wanting more and more to fill up your lustful yearning for the macabre. You became successful at using my craft of malevolence in this world. Now it is time for you to repay me for all that I have given you." I frantically looked for a way out. There was none. With a trembling voice, I said, "I never asked for this. Since I was a child, my nights have been filled with extreme anxiety and insomnia. You made my life a living hell." Satan quickly responded, "My boy, my foolish boy, that is exactly the point. Your fascination with wickedness and death have preoccupied your mind through your entire pitiful life. I just gave you what you wanted. A living hell. You devalue human life with wretchedness and contempt by the monstrosities you have created. That is what your heart desires." Satan chuckled through his explanation. He showed me a vision of human faces etched in despair. I heard voices crying out in blood-curdling wailing. There was incessant gnashing of teeth. Flames engulfed the disembodied faces. Roaring conflagrations of intense fire and heat spewed from the vision, causing me to fall back. I was mortified and overcome with great fear. Satan spoke again with confidence. "You are trapped by your earthly desires. There is no way out. My final gift is for you to capture the misery, hopelessness, and utter terror of hell in your next earthly venture. After that, your soul belongs to me in the everlasting fires of hell." In protest, I declared, "Oh my God in heaven, no way on God's green earth do I plan to spend eternity with you, you ghastly vermin of mankind." At the mention of God, Satan cringed. He vehemently argued, "I took care of him 2,000 years ago. I made sure he was dead, this self-proclaimed prophet, called the Christ, who called himself God. He healed pathetic people, but he could not save himself from a cross of death. I won, and now I am the victor of everything. My realm is full of the shadowy souls of despicable and evil men and women, believers and non-believers of this so-called God." I saw in that moment Satan trembling and doubting his words. That lapse gave me a moment to remember something from my childhood and the Christmases I had with my family. My mama would recount the birth of Jesus, the Christ in Bethlehem. She reminded me of my baptism of water into the community of believers in Christ. I remembered the peace and joy I received. That was a time when I had no nightmares, no night terrors. These memories made me feel stronger. In my boldness, being filled with the Spirit, I proclaimed to Satan, regardless of my sordid past and sinful actions, you, Satan, have no claim on my soul. Your lies and indictments are not binding, because Jesus, the Christ, came to your insidious place to proclaim his victory over you. Where, O death, is your victory? O death, where is your sting? Satan cowered at my words. I continued with amazing fortitude. I believe in God the Father, maker of heaven and earth. I believe in Jesus, the Christ who suffered, died, and rose again for my sins. You, Satan, are a liar, and the truth is not in you. You are damned, but I am not, because the Christ has forgiven me of my iniquities and wretchedness. The Christ is my way out of this nightmare. Begone, Satan, in the name of Jesus. A thunderous rage poured out like earthquakes, volcanoes, and raging storms, simultaneously erupting from the evil one. Instantly, Satan departed, and this frightening nightmare ended. In his wake, a blinding light emerged. I peered at the light. I saw a star hovering above a man and woman, gathered at a crib of straw. In that crib, I saw a baby wrapped in cloth, and the space around me was illuminated with an incredible light. A great peace descended upon me, releasing me of my terrorizing night afflictions. May your dreams be filled with joy and peace of the baby whose dream became reality to save man from himself. There were shepherds living out in the fields nearby. It was night, and they were taking care of their sheep. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them. They were terrified, but the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news. It will bring great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. Here is how you will know I am telling you the truth. You will find a baby wrapped in strips of cloth and lying in a manger." Suddenly, a large group of angels from heaven also appeared. They were praising God. They said, "May glory be given to God in the highest heaven, and may peace be given to those he is pleased with on earth." All in this together. Why are we still here? Because we can't leave. Not yet. Who says we can't? We don't even know what we're waiting for. You don't get it, do you? This isn't about waiting. It's about figuring things out. Figuring what out? We've been over this 100 times. There's nothing left to figure out. You're wrong. There's always something left. A piece of the puzzle we're missing. Puzzles are for people with time. We don't have time. Hey guys, what you doing? Don't you dare say that. We have all the time we need. Then why do I feel like the walls are closing in? Because you're panicking. You always panic. Of course I panic. You're the one pretending everything's fine. I never said it was fine. I said we're working on it. Working on it. We're running in circles. Calm down. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Harder? It's already impossible. We're trapped in here. We're not trapped. We're contained. Contained? That's just a fancy word for stuck. No, it means there's a purpose. A reason we're still here. Stop with the reasons. I just want out. Yeah, same. I was just over there. And go where? Where do you think out even is? Anywhere but here. Anywhere I can breathe. Breathe. You've been breathing just fine. Wow, rude. Have I? Or have I been suffocating this whole time? That's dramatic. Even for you. Don't patronize me. I'm not. I'm just saying you're looking at this the wrong way. And you're saying that like you have all the answers. I never said I did. But at least I'm trying. Trying? You're the reason we're still here. Me? You think this is my fault? Of course it is. If you hadn't... Stop. Don't go there. Why not? Afraid of the truth? I'm not afraid. I just don't think blaming each other is helping. Helping? Nothing's helping. That's because you won't let it. Won't let it? I'm the only one trying to get us out of this mess. It is a bit untidy around here, to be fair. You call yelling and flailing trying? That's not trying, that's flailing. At least I'm doing something. Maybe what we need is to stop doing and start thinking. Thinking? We've been thinking ourselves into knots. Knots can be untied if we're careful. I don't want to be careful. I want to be free. You keep saying that, but you don't even know what freedom looks like. It looks like not this. Like not you. Funny. I was about to say the same thing about you. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe we're the problem. No, not we, you. Me? Don't start pointing fingers. Why not? You've been pointing them at me this whole time. Who are we pointing at? Because you don't listen. Neither do you. Enough. All of you, shut up. Who are you to tell us to... Wow. Double rude. No, I'm done with this. I've had enough of your bickering. And what do you plan to do about it? I'm going to end it. All of it. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Wait. We can talk about this. No more talking. No more excuses. Please don't. We can figure this out. Too late. It's time to let go. Let go of what? Of you. Of me? What does that even mean? It means I'm done carrying the weight of all of you. All of us? Oh, that's rich. You're the one who's always so heavy-handed. Am I? Or am I just the one who has to clean up your messes? Messes? Don't pin this on me. I didn't ask for you. And I didn't ask for you. Any of you. Aw, that's mean. Great. Here we go again. With the martyr complex. It's not a complex. It's reality. Reality? Ha! Do you even know what's real anymore? Stop it. Stop pretending like we're separate. What's that supposed to mean? It means we're not as divided as you think. It means we're all one big, happy family. Don't start with that nonsense. We're here. We're real. No, you're here because I am. That's ridiculous. We're here because we exist. You exist because I let you. I exist because you liked acid a little too much in your 20s. Let us? Oh, that's bold. What makes you think you're in charge? Because without me, there's nothing. No thoughts, no plans, no voices. Voices? You're hearing voices now? Yes, yours. Constantly. Every waking moment. Wait. Are you saying we're not real? I'm saying I don't know anymore. Well, that's convenient. Blame it on a lack of clarity. I am so real. It's not clarity I'm missing. It's control. Control? Is that what you think this is about? Yes, and I'm taking it back. Pfft. Control freak. You can't just erase us, can't I? If I created you, I can end you. You didn't create us. We've always been here. No, you're fragments, splinters of a broken mind. Broken? You're calling us broken? Look at yourself. I have. That's the problem. Someone realized he's going bald. Ha ha ha. No, you're wrong. It's not about control. Shut up. You're just as lost as the rest of us. I'm the one who knows what's going on. Stop acting like you've got all the answers. You're just pretending. Pretending? You're the one who's pretending. Pretending everything's fine when it's not. We're stuck, okay? We're stuck. And it's your fault. It's not my fault. If you just listen. Listen to what? Your delusions? You've been trapped in here for so long. You don't even know what's real anymore. I know exactly what's real. You don't get it, do you? I'm the one who holds us all together. Holds us together? You're a joke. We're falling apart, piece by piece. And it's because of you. Piece by piece. You think I'm the one who's falling apart? You're all falling apart. You don't know what it's like to be in here. To be trapped with nothing but you. I think it's great. But whatever. Enough with this. You're not trapped. You're just scared. You've always been scared. 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 I'm not the one freaking out. Look at you. You're the one who can't hold it together. Don't you dare accuse me of I'm the one who's been stuck dealing with this mess. Trying to keep it all together. Trying? Trying isn't good enough. We're dying in here. Dying? We're not dying. You're just too loud. I'm not loud. I'm trying to fix it. Fix it? How? You can't fix anything. You're just broken. All of us are. I'm not broken. I'm not. You are. I've had enough of this. I'm leaving, whether you like it or not. You can't leave. You don't even know how. I'm taking my toys and going home. Leave? Where the hell would you go? Somewhere, anywhere, anywhere but here with you. You don't get to leave. We're stuck together. This is it. You're never getting away. Enough. All of you. Just shut up. Please, just shut up. I don't care anymore. Oh no. Now you've gone and done it. Stop. Stop yelling at me. Stop. Stop making me feel this way. We're stuck, remember? And guess what? I'm the only one who gets it. You're all lost. Lost? If I'm lost, then you we're all nothing in the end. Just empty voices. And you're a fat, bummed beaver with bad breath. Shut up. Just shut up. Please. No, we won't shut up. We won't let you hide anymore. You've been hiding for so long. You don't even know what it's like to be free. I am free. I can do this. I can do what? Keep pretending. Keep lying to yourself. I'm not lying. I'm not. You're all just voices. You're all in my head. We're not just voices. We're you. We're everything you've been ignoring. I can't ignore it anymore. I can't keep fighting myself. We are you. You can't fight us because we're you. No, no, no! I'm losing control. I can't stop this. You don't have to lose control. You never had it in the first place. Stop. Please stop. You can't stop us. You can't stop anything anymore. Why are you fighting? We're all in this together. We're all in this together, you and I. We're all in this together. Oh my God, seriously? You're singing now? Yeah, we're all in this together. You can't escape this, no matter how hard you try. No, you're all just pieces of me. I don't want this. I never asked for this. You don't get to decide that anymore. This is who you are. No, this isn't who I am. This isn't... We're all in this together. That was such a shitty movie, by the way. What do you mean? Grease was a great movie. Grease? It wasn't Grease. It was Rocky Horror Picture Show. No, shut up. Please. We're all in this together. It was Wicked, wasn't it? That green W. Enough! Stop yelling at me. We can't. We're already screaming inside your head. I just want some peace. Can you give me that peace? What's peace? Do you even know what that is? Peace is, I don't know. Not this. Not this? What's wrong with this? Everything. It's chaos. It's madness. We're all in this together. Oh, God. You're still singing that. Stop it. We're all in this together, you and I. And I'm not stopping. Why are you doing this? Why can't you just leave me alone? We don't leave. We are you. You're just pieces of me. Little, obnoxious pieces. Little, obnoxious pieces. I'm a star. Star? You've been singing the same song for 10 minutes. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. I'm going to lose my mind. Too late for that. You lost it a long time ago. Shut up. Just shut up. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. Ugh. Why is it always the worst one that keeps singing? I can't help it. It's a catchy tune. It's not even a good song. Who are you to judge? You're the one stuck with me. Yeah, I am. Great. Just great. Look, it's not so bad. We're all in this together. You're ruining my life. Ruining? I'm enhancing it. I'm the star of the show. No, you're not. You're the nightmare I can't wake up from. I'm not a nightmare. I'm the musical number. Stop singing, please. We're all in this together. I hate you so much right now. Oh, come on, you love me. Never, ever again. We're all in this together. Can you just die already? Nope. I'm here for the long haul, buddy. I swear. If I hear one more note, we're all in this, No! Stop! Together. This is my life now, isn't it? Yep, you're stuck with us. I'm gonna lose it. You already did. The woman. and the Beast. Professor Manda entered the lecture hall, and the entire auditorium fell silent upon noticing her presence. She tapped the floor as she walked in her blocked purple heels, which complemented her purple and green Ankara dress. Her braided hair was styled in a small bun, and she adorned her normal-sized earlobes with silver earrings. She looked the part as she stood in front of the people. She was the wife, the mother, and the first woman professor in her town. She stood at the podium and leaned forward into the microphone. She began to speak. It is said that a woman of greatness never sleeps at night. In the light of day, she is loved and respected by all, but in the stillness of the night, she is haunted by her own shadow. She paused to pose a question. What happens when you take a woman from the land she walks on and place her in waters that could either drown her or feed her to the creatures of the sea? Taking a sip of the black coffee prepared for her at the podium, laced with a shot of Irish whiskey at her request, she savored the acquired taste and answered her own question. I'll tell you one thing that a woman I know did when she didn't drown or get eaten. She floated in the water for as long as she could. Eventually, she started to swim in search of land, even territory that did not belong to her. Her instinct to survive became desperate when she discovered a small island in the middle of nowhere. She fell asleep for a while, only to wake up to the sound of her stomach growling. Her mouth was dry from a lack of water, and her body felt heavy since she hadn't eaten for days. Despite this, one thing grew stronger: a desperate need to survive at all costs. The water around her was calm, and while her body was weak, only her eyes showed signs of movement. She dived into the water and caught a large fish by its tail. The fish struggled for freedom, but she was too quick, pulling it out of the water, depriving it of air, and sinking her teeth into its flesh. Days passed, and her life began to change as she learnt to survive in the wild. During the day, she enjoyed sleeping, but when the moon rose, her eyes shone brighter because it was time to feed. All the small animals glared at her, the heartless intruder who killed them with no mercy. She fed on their uncooked flesh and stored their remains in the cool ground under the trees. The woman destroyed the homes of other creatures to build her own, cutting down trees to make a house. She had crossed the line that separates humans from animals. She had become like one of them, another creature in the world struggling to survive. The heat of the sun and the cold rain had not killed her. Her body was shaped like steel. Her muscles bulged. Her hair had grown wild, and her eyes resembled those of a mad woman. Yet, her need to survive had only grown stronger. This need had driven her out of her own humanity and transformed her into a beast. After all, who better than a beast could survive in such harsh conditions? With focus, the beast performed its tasks, replacing soft human hands with hard, strong ones. The brutal environment was suited only for a beast. Thus, she adapted to the harsh world that had transformed her body into that of the beast. One sunny day, the beast managed to push the makeshift raft into the ocean, battling against the waves as it sailed away. Looking back at the small island, the woman reclaimed what was left of her body and felt a pain in her chest. The hope she once had now returned in double amounts. Her raft sailed on the dark sea the entire night, but she was not afraid. While her vision may have been affected, her other senses were as sharp as a shaka's spear. In the morning, she could see the mainland in the distance. Hungry and tired, she thought about her favorite meal, enshima, cabbage, and dried fish. She remembered how her mother used to cook it for her, and the gentle voice that would wake her in the morning. Tears fell from her eyes as she finally felt human again. As she gazed at the mainland, she smiled and tried to scream, but her smile was crooked, and her scream was more of a whisper because the beast could neither smile nor scream. People looked at her in wonder, asking each other how the woman had managed to survive in the wild. They called her great and erected a monument in her memory. Books about her were written, and children learned of her bravery. Many years went by, but she never forgot her past because the beast's eyes would stare back at her in the mirrors of her house. She couldn't accept the fact that without the beast, she wouldn't be alive. The audience was quiet, expecting more of an explanation from the professor's strange story. Then she cleared her throat and took another sip of her coffee. As the hot liquid went down her throat, she said shakily, "Only losers drown in earthly miseries or die by becoming a beast. Sometimes, just sometimes, one has to become a nightmare in order to live in her dreams. And with that comes the consequences of that decision." There was dead silence after that. Then, after a minute, a faint clap sparked the whole crowd to applaud and finally give her a standing ovation. Professor Manda walked to a covered figure and unveiled an erected statue of her at the entrance of the auditorium. Many students flocked to her to get their copies of her latest book signed. The day felt long, and she was thankful it had finally come to an end as she entered her house at midnight. She staggered to her children's bedroom and saw that they were sleeping. The coffee had done its job, making her feel tipsy. She entered her own room and was greeted by her husband's loud snoring. As she stepped further inside, she took off her earrings and placed them on her vanity table. However, when she looked up, she suddenly screamed at the reflection staring back at her. Virus, I am so crushed by time. Time and these oozing wounds and the rotten flesh, like mealy apple that is my chest cavity. Rotten skin and an infected mind. Gangrenous parietal. So insatiably starving for living flesh, to rend it in my grinding jaw, the music of muscle mashing between molars and canines. A beating heart, my own, a thick, bloody steak. The fog of insanity. I am a monster, a living dead. I was once a man, the axe head dragging heavy in the dirt. A curved razor edge and an engraved raven screaming in the silver. Scratches all along the throat and dried blood caked from heel to toe. A thin trail drawn in my footsteps, full of nightmares and terror. A horsefly crawls from a soggy hole in my cheek. Up ahead, in the cobalt blue between night and dawn, a cabin with windows boarded and the door barricaded. Faint whisper of light on the eastern rim, hope pretending to be where it's certainly not. Or is it truly there? Does hope still exist when your own has gone from the world? Footsteps forward. An animal slaughtered and torn to bits in the yard. A goat, most likely. Its rib cage shorn and sucked of the marrow. Bones and hooves make for lovely crowns. Some of the infected have shown an affinity for satanic macabre, my own skin crawling. The devil inside me too. Feed, devour carcasses, piled and burned and turned to ash. Skulls with strips of flesh melted to orbitals. An explosive exit wound from a lonely dome rolled to the bottom of the blackened heap. Shotgun, sawed off. The stench is unmistakable, an overpowering, mutant reek blowing about in the wind. Someone has defended this place well. It's eerie and silent. No barn or garage. Tracks swerve backwards frantically in the gravel driveway. No vehicle in sight. A rope swing slung from the branch of an oak shivers in the breeze. Crows cry from the barren trees. They've learned not to pick at our remains. Those that do go stark mad. They attack their own, and soon the whole murder is infected. Dark balloons, writhing in the sky, plowing at high velocities into stone structures, crashing through glass and shredding themselves to feathered ribbon. Perhaps everything living is gone. No. Through the foul aroma, something else. Sweat. Blood. Tears. Feast. The wood porch groans under my feet. Rancid stumps numb to feeling. Digits cracked and twisted from wild wanderings. Everything boarded, nothing through which to peer. I rap a knuckle on the door, solid, reinforced with planks, or perhaps the overturned dining room table. I make sure to stay clear of the frame. Whatever shotgun did damage to that skull could be waiting on the other side. Moments go by. Nothing. I asked Caroline to marry me in a field of sunflowers. I planned to surprise her at the peak, but the sun pouring over the ridge painted everything a warm, liquid gold and filled me with a fearlessness I've not felt since. A courage that makes old friends of forever. She paused, a petal between her fingertips, and when she turned around, I was on one knee with a little box and a ring. I didn't even get the words out. "Yes," she breathed, dropping to the ground with me, my palm circling the small of her back, her hand running laps through my hair. Brown eyes, like Kodiak fur. I press my ear to the door, raw appendage blistered by the cold, the upper portion torn away by raking fingernails. Inside, a sound wave, barely a ripple, and then a booming echo, the thundering of a grandfather clock from a time long past. What's the hour? 5 a.m.? 6? What do the hands of a clock mean when time itself has stopped? And who said it ever really began? All of us zombies back then, slaves to time, wishing we had more, doing nothing with it, the best intentions, and all of our might, and all we did was eat the world. Mind virus, mustard gas in my demented cerebral, entire battalions twisting in the mud, gasping and choking, clawing away at their necks. Quiet, solitude, a freezing morning, and a cabin in the woods. Flesh, feed, gorge. I descend back down the steps and head for the rear of the house. My eyes dart in their sockets, alert to danger. The obliterated mutants in the yard burned in my thoughts like the scorched outline of a cattle brand. A ton of ammunition to build a mountain of bodies that big. Landmines and claymores, maybe. But the car gone, and no sniper fire to greet me. A fiendish drawl of laughter leaks from me. Where else to go? The hell is all around you. The backyard, gray and dreary and desolate. Spindly trees like crooked skeletons, and a rusted weather vane plunged into the earth. A playscape with a slide and tunnel. Haunting emptiness. Abandoned next to the playscape. A purple big wheel with pink streamers taped to the handlebars, and Disney princess stickers pasted all along the back seat. Ice in my fingertips and chalk in my throat. A rupture in time and a memory forced to the surface. Winter sunlight streaming through the living room window, and a cinnamon aroma wafting through the hall. evergreen needles and ornaments sparking within, icicles and candy canes and crimson hearts adorned with all of our smiles, thrashing, tearing, ripping, the wrapping paper undone while she giggles with glee. "Wow!" she hollers, animated as a cartoon coyote losing its top. "Yay, Daddy!" She bounces up and down in the rubble, the paper crunching and crinkling beneath her, a smile on my face, and Caroline's hands on my shoulders. She kisses my cheek and rests her chin on the top of my head. "Oh, what did you get her?" she asks, the size of the box exasperating the tone in her voice. Surely there's nowhere to put it. Not in this tiny space. "It's a big wheel, Mommy." She's flipping it sideways and shoveling away the mess to give her mother a clear view. Her eyes beam with excitement, and electricity crackles in the room. Fleece jammies and wool socks floating a few strands of her strawberry blonde locks in the sunlight. "Can we take it out, Daddy? Can we?" She tugs at my arm. "It's all right with me. Ask your mom, though. Even Daddy has to ask Mom when he wants to do something around here." She bites her lip. She can be annoyed by the box occupying half the living room, or the childishness of her husband's silly, untrue joke. But what she can't deny is the thrill in her daughter's voice, or the simple joy that arises within a child when they receive a bike on Christmas. "Oh, okay," she relents, "but coat and boots on Missy. And take your father with you. I've got a breakfast casserole in the oven, and I still have to ice the cinnamon rolls." Gabby bounds from the room cheering. "And you?" She gives a playful shove. "Get that box down into the dumpster before I tape you inside and return to sender." I wrap her in my arms and take her down to the rug. She shrieks and we laugh and kiss, rolling around in the mess. The empty playscape again, front and center, and the big wheel lonely on the hard ground. Rage surges through me. I have the sudden urge to split a living thing in two, to pin its entrails to the wall. My hunger is an ocean, a quick twitch, wretched suffering, and a tweaking need for flesh between my teeth. There's a log on a stump from the before times when smoke from a chimney wasn't a sure way to get you killed. I raise the axe over my head and unleash an animal howl. I bring it down savagely, splitting the log in two and the stump 3/4 the way to the ground. Rage. Feed. I pry the axe free and return my gaze to the cabin. Something unexpected. The back entrance is exposed. The door's been ripped from its hinges. It lies mangled 10 yards away. Darkness in the frame. Silence. No movement, but my own steps forward. A snarling in my mind. An impatient unease. I pick up a stone and lob it through the door. No hail of gunfire. No screams shredding the silence. I hold the axe steady and enter. A trail of blood on the kitchen floor and a shattered coffee pot nearby. Jagged remains of dishes scattered everywhere, bullets in the wall, and casings at my feet. A confrontation. But where are the bodies? Or at least the remains? Somewhere near. The scent is stronger, and the sound audible through the door. It's clearer now. A radio. There's a radio playing. It's coming from the living room. More blood on the carpet. Not just droplets, but messy splatters with a darker hue. A more gaping wound. An open artery. A bigger chunk removed. A green light blinks in the bookcase. The radio mumbles away. My monologue's out of control. I found the hole where the happiness goes. Lump in my throat, and a throat in my tongue. I'm gonna scream at the top of my lungs. You get lost in the ocean. What do you do when you are so broken? The flood, the feeling comes over. How are you so loved and so lonesome? I press the power button, and the noise ceases. Starving. I'm so starving. And sun-stable calm has bloomed within me. A hurricane eye still and silent, outside of which the chaos of the universe churns. A chaos untamed by the God that created it. What God? So much hatred in my heart. If infinite wisdom allows for this, then I wish to remain a feral beast forever. Up the stairs I go. In the hallways is where I find them. An infected with its head blown off, gushers of blood pooled in a lake around its body. Rigor mortis set in long ago. The creature's bony fingers have curled and cemented, its spine stiff as a folding board, and the smell putrid even to me. Black flies feasting on the carcass. A rat scurries from the gaping hole in its neck. The man of the house sat up against the wall at the end of the hallway, a shotgun blast through his heart. I bare my teeth and lean in for a closer look. Yellow in his eyes, in his fingernails, claw marks on his neck, infected by the thing he slew. Took his own life to avoid the fate of us. He's a weak dead, at least. No use to me. I crave flesh that's alive. There's nothing alive here. I reach into his pocket and find an unused shell. I slot into the shotgun and tuck the weapon under my arm. I descend the stairs and head back outside. I make for the woods behind the cabin. Maybe I can kill a buck and drain its blood, enough to sustain me while I hunt. Icy dew on the hard ground. It cracks beneath my steps. I stop in my tracks, and a hellish grin spreads slowly on my cracked lips. What a gift of the virus. The nose of a bloodhound. The scent has returned. It possesses me, makes my blood boil. I follow it, saliva dripping from my chops. Thump, hollowness beneath me. I roll onto my toes and then back on my heels. A creaking, and then a soft whimper. I can hear the blood rushing in their veins. My rain blows down upon the concealed cellar door, screams that curdle the air, and animal fear that only presents inches from death. I jam my heel into the destroyed wood and rip the pathetic thing from its hinges. I descend down, feeding time, a woman in tears and shaking uncontrollably. The virus propelling me forward like a demonic puppet. So dark in here, just a single lantern, and still barely any light in the sky. My jaw ready to clamp her throat, a whimper beneath her breast. A child, a girl, 2 years old, time swirling backwards again. Terrified screams, creatures tearing through our home, crawling on the walls and ceiling. Caroline sprints to the truck, Gabby bawling in her arms. The pistol barks in my hand. A bullet explodes through the eye of a pursuing mutant. Now I'm tearing after both of them, heart in my throat, the fear of God releasing atmospheres of adrenaline. I rip open the cab door, but it's too slow. The creature's claws are in my calf, and he's drawn blood. I waste him with the last bullet in the chamber and fall backwards, dragged to the pavement. I can feel it surging inside of me. Caroline screaming, my face in her cupped hands, hot tears streaming down, foam in my mouth and violent convulsions. My windpipe is constricting. Go. I breathe. Caroline. Go. No, she cries. No, I won't leave you. Jagged needles of pain shooting up and down my limbs. Feverish sweat pouring from my glands. Go, or I'll kill you. She clutches harder. No, I won't. Yellow sun bursting in my corneas. Boiling rage and insanity beginning to blink its horrible visions. I take a final look at my baby girl. Then my last words before losing control. Go, or I'll kill her. The Jeep roars from the driveway, gravel dust clouds, and descends upon me. Wailing with her hands, pounding the glass, is Gabby. In her grip, her little Jonathan husky doll, time present again. In the dark cellar, a mother and her daughter. And in the terrified girl's hands, a stuffed beagle. Her own Jonathan. I jolt backwards, the cords in my neck straining under great pressure. Oxygen has evacuated my lungs. Kill, feed, musty in the cellar. A dankness that comes with the dark and wet. Go, Caroline, I won't. I collapse to my knees and retch. Blood in my eyes. Ravenous hunger that grips me. The woman clutches her girl and cries. She rocks back and forth, covering her daughter's eyes. No, I can't. No, I won't. Choked words between the retching. I won't leave you. Go, or I'll kill her. The fury is about to take over. I can feel it cresting into the abyss. one last shred of humanity inside me. My daughter's eyes in my soul. I clasp the shotgun and slide it, panicked, across the cement floor. "Do it!" I scream. But the virus has taken everything, and it comes out as a wild, maniacal howl. I'm overtaken, completely overrun. There is no more of me left. She lunges for the shotgun. I lunge to feast. A blast shatters the morning. There is no more of me left, escaping nothing. I felt the light before my eyes actually saw it, warm and soft, almost tangible, like a blanket draped across my skin. How long had I been lying there? I tried pushing myself up from the ground, but nothing seemed to want to work properly. It was as though I'd never attempted to move before. Finally, begrudgingly, my body began to obey my brain. I turned over and began to sit up as I blinked and squinted against the blinding yellow that seemed less a comforter and more an attacker now. My ears were coming to life as my hands instinctively moved to cover them in hopes to drown out the high-pitched ringing. Slowly, my sight and hearing both began to come into focus. Dust hovered in the air around me. What had just happened? As I stood up, I racked my brain for anything that could help me understand my surroundings. My legs were as untrustworthy as my memory, however, so I quickly sat back down on the dark green grass. Okay, let's try this again. I encouraged my limbs. I took my time getting on my feet, watching my legs carefully as they strained. I had no coverings on my feet. I had no coverings on the rest of my body either, it seemed. Scanning the horizon, there seemed to be no one around to notice my nakedness. Nothing I could see indicated that there were any others at all, actually. I began walking towards the hill that lay in front of me. It was steep, but not so steep that my aching, wobbly legs couldn't manage to navigate it with a little help from my hands. When I reached the peak, I could see for what seemed like miles in every direction. "Hello?" I called to my left. "Hello?" I called again. "Is anybody there?" Where was everyone else? I began to walk down the hill, continuing in the same direction. Hundreds of large, sharp rocks jutted from the ground, as though driven up by some unnatural force. I had to dodge cracks in the ground that wound incoherently about the land. Oddly enough, they seemed to be slowly closing rather than expanding. "Hello?" I called again. "Is anybody there?" I yelled. Everything around me was unfamiliar. Why couldn't I remember what happened? Was there anyone else? Or was I the only one who... No, I couldn't think like that. There must be others. I am in the middle of nowhere. There is no indication of civilization around me at all. So Why should there be others here? There must be others. It wasn't a question of if, but of where. "Hello!" I screamed, nevertheless. I couldn't convince my mind that I would be out here all alone. The only response was the sound of a soft breeze, rustling trees in the distance. The sky around me was dark as my concern grew. I suddenly felt very exposed. The only safe place seemed to be the grove of trees that the breeze had discovered, so I started walking that way. Quicker, more quickly. Finally, I was running. Fear began to overtake me and drive me. At last, I stepped into the darkness of the woods and worked to catch my breath before examining my new surroundings. My eyes adjusted to the dim light quickly. Hundreds of trees surrounded me, but in the trees, I could see creatures moving about, jumping from limb to limb, flapping their wings for balance. Birds. Birds are here. That's a really good sign. What else? I walked forward, moving leaves and branches away from my face, pushing deeper into the woods. A low rumble that stopped me in my tracks began to emerge from the shadows. I could feel my heart rate quicken as a large animal stepped into what little light could penetrate the canopy. Its yellow eyes captured that light and threw it back at me as it bit its long, sharp fangs. I couldn't move, but I wasn't sure I wanted to either. The large cat walked towards me as it snarled softly. It sniffed my bare skin before letting out a chilling roar. My eyes closed tightly, but no other aspect of my body was capable of responding. "Ah, he's over here," I heard someone speak. "Seems the tiger found him," the voice chuckled. The words seemed to come from every direction all at once. The tiger backed away and trotted back into the shadows. I followed her lead. While my mind told me I should have been relieved to hear the sound of another, something in me was trembling and fearful. I crouched down behind a tree, hoping the shroud of bushes would shield me until I could learn more. "You hide from me?" The voice was louder and echoed in my brain. I searched the woods frantically, but saw no one. Then I heard rustling in the trees and the sound of footsteps on the ground. "Run!" I obeyed my instincts and forced my body to move, retracing the path I'd used to come into the woods. Getting out, getting to the light, was my only goal. "Now you run?" The voice that still seemed to surround me questioned. "Where will you go?" "There is nothing." Exploding out of the trees and into the light, I pressed on towards one of the large shards of stone that pierced the landscape and slid behind it. My uncovered legs scraped against the ground, opening up small gashes. I watched the blood trickle from me like a foreign substance, red and dark, until finally I shook my mind free and turned toward the dangerous grove of trees to watch, to wait. The voice was right. There is nothing. Why do you run? Why do you hide? The voice boomed inside my mind, but I saw no one. My fear turned to anger and frustration. Why do you hide? There is nothing. There is no one. I am alone. I am the last one. What did you do to them? What did I do to who? The others. Just do it to me. If I'm the last, just do it to me. The last? Oh no, you are not the last. Quite the contrary. You are the first, but we will make more. Everlasting tears. It's been 20 years since I've seen a human face. They were all obliterated to shreds by that thing. The thing showed no mercy to anyone. Everyone and everything was decimated upon recognition. Everyone, except for me. There was no warning, no sign, nothing. Just absolute destruction. The thing yielded. I was standing there in the middle of a street corner, eyes glued on my phone, and a woman screamed. A scream of absolute terror. A scream that induced physical shock in me. A scream that sounded like the angels of death were coming to take me. Just like that, the woman was scooped up by the thing and taken away to God knows where. Chaos broke out, everyone scrambling to get away. But the thing did not discriminate. It eradicated every item in its path, leaving no room for a human breath. Standing there, unable to move or make a sound, fearing that I'd be its next victim. Quickly as it came, it left, disappearing into nothingness and only leaving debris of a once functional society. I ran as fast as I could. 1, 2, 3 miles until my legs locked, and I collapsed from shock and pain. I lay there in my own sweat and salty tears, realizing that everyone was gone. Nothing was left. Not even a speck of dust was spared from the wrath of the thing. Unsure of what to do, I did the only thing my body was capable of. I sob into my hands, loud and uncontrollably. Between sobs are the accusations. This is all my fault. It wasn't. It was completely out of my control. Why didn't it take me? I still wonder that today some may think it was a blessing, but I see it as a curse. I'm all alone, was the last thing that slipped my lips before I lost all hope. The misery and pain started slowly and painfully. I was desperate for a way out. Anything I tried failed. I was stuck in this eternal hell. Next was denial, which struck like a ton of bricks. I was fully convinced that everything happening was a figment of my imagination. I was hallucinating, in a coma, suffering a concussion. Any excuse to justify this dreadful reality. The thing never came back. For so many years, I wished it would. After some time, I became numb to this unfamiliarity of life. To distract myself, I began to explore new places, see the world for what it was, a dry, deserted wasteland with nothing but me. I started playing pretend with my thoughts, tricking myself into believing I was in a place prior to this wretched hell. I created a whole family for myself. My mom was called Helen, and my dad was called Steve. I had 2 siblings. One was called John, and one Wendy. Me and my siblings never got along. Wendy always pulled my hair, and John called me a pea brain. Still, I loved them, and we were a big, happy family. I had gone nuts. I began lurking around empty stores, trying on the newest designer clothes, but were they technically new? And having a mini fashion show to keep myself entertained. I scarfed down any leftover canned food. Electricity didn't work, so I had to eat it cold. Then I sat on the display couch and turned on the TV, which did nothing, wondering what I did to deserve this. I had been a decent human being and achieved the life anyone would want. A stable job, a nice car, and a 2-bedroom apartment. Yet I was still chosen to be the subject of damnation. Eventually, drowned in tears, I dozed off. Sleep was different. The constant night terrors and being unable to escape my dreams tortured me. Every day, the sight of the glistening sun awoke me. I never got used to the ear-piercing screech of silence. Imagining myself in a place of peace and prosperity kept me sane enough. I started hearing things, my brain tricking me and mimicking the voices of my lost friends and family. "Come with us," the voice said. But there was nowhere to go, nothing to do, nothing but me and the voices in my head and the fact that there is no escape. "I'm right here." "No, you're not. Stop playing these cruel tricks on me, brain. You're nothing and nowhere without me. You don't have the right to trick me. I am you. And you are the only thing that feeds my constant pain and misery. Just shut up. I'm watching you." Which was strange, because there is and will always be nothing. Nothing but moon and the summer breeze, which was a trick, because there was no such thing. No summertime beach days or winter snow days, just constant dead air and murky brown particles circling the atmosphere. If the astronauts came back, they would have thought they landed on the wrong planet. But they never came back. No one did. Not a single soul ever surfaced on Mother Earth again. I made my way to New York. It only took about half a month, but time was useless. The year, month, day, minute, second didn't matter. time was irrelevant because the only being that existed was irrelevant. Plants, animals, bacteria, anything that was slightly alive were crushed by the thing. The only existence was atoms, stars, space, and Mother Earth. Yet all her life was sucked up by the greedy black mass that consumed her children, driven by a once joyful life and the hope for something new, searching for a sign of anything. I will take anything. O glorious Mother Earth, please feed my quenched need for something more than nothing. Nothing. Just like before I was given nothing. Frustrated, I began to cry, crying like a child who just dropped their lollipop onto the dirty, hot pavement. Between the tears, I heard a plop, then another and another, and before I knew it, there were thousands of raindrops falling. One by one, Mother Earth has answered my desperate calls with her tears of hope. The dry ground has been nourished with the richness of the tears, and Mother Earth no longer wishes for something to drink. I sit there on my hands and knees, inspecting the once death-filled ground that is now thriving with water. I poke at it and expect dirt as hard as a rock. Instead, I feel the squishiness of mud. It was like touching the cheek of the once flourishing human population. I stare at the mud I had created and let out a scream. The scream echoed across the vast emptiness of the world and bounced back with hope for something new. Something inside of me lit up, and I felt like my heart was going to fly right out of my chest, dance around me, and fly away to the world beyond. Overwhelmed with excitement, I rest my head on the mud, hoping to hear its breathing like it was a newborn baby. I lay there for 1, 2, 3 hours, listening, waiting for something more. The voices no longer taunt me. They cannot patronize me and my thoughts any longer. A deep breath and the sound of nothing filled my ears. Nothing but the sound of the breeze. Mother Earth has given me the milk from her breast and allowed me to suckle on her glorious freedom and chance for something other than nothing. A single tear slipped down my cheek as I cry for the absence of nothing. As I cry for Mother Earth and her generously answering my prayers, I cry for me and for humanity and the thing, which is weird because that thing is the sole reason for my eternal suffering on this glorious planet that was overthrown by death. That did not matter anymore. The only thing that mattered was the spark of hope that ignited the once deceased light bulb. Finding Lucas. "He's in there. I know he is," said Mark to no one, kneeling behind a tree and staring through binoculars. He started to count. 3, 4, 5. I can take 5. This was only the people he could see, and he couldn't be sure that there weren't more. He'd have to wait another hour, then go in under the guise of darkness, or risk being caught. An hour was a long time to wait, when all you want is to be reunited. But if he wasn't smart about this, he'd die before he could ever help Lucas. 3 days earlier, Mark and his 6-year-old son, Lucas, were eating cans of beans by a fire in the desolate woods. They assumed they were all alone. And why wouldn't they? When you're living through a zombie apocalypse, you're almost always alone. Mark had been recounting tales about the boy's mother from before he was born. This only saddened Lucas, since he never got to meet her. She died giving birth to him, back when modern medicine wasn't hard to come by, and before the day of darkness, the name the survivors dubbed for the start of the apocalypse. Survivors was a funny word to both of them, since they hadn't seen a single other human in the past 6 months. The last human they saw met his end at the hands of Mark and his trusty 8-inch blade he kept strapped to his ankle. The red-headed drunk had stumbled upon the two of them while they were pillaging an already slim, rationed convenience store. Seemingly friendly at first, he approached them with a good-natured spirit. It turned dark very quickly when he elbowed Mark in the face, picked up Lucas, and made a run for it. Carrying a 6-year-old boy slowed you down mightily, and Mark caught up to him rather quickly. In the old days, Mark would have just tackled him to the ground and called the authorities. But that was the old days. Now, the only justice was the one you served up yourself. Mark stuck his blade directly between the drunk's shoulder blades, and he went down hard, splitting his head open against the pavement, choking on his own blood in the process. He had fallen on top of Lucas, but luckily, the boy had not sustained any injuries. No physical ones, that is. The trauma, on the other hand, back in the old world, children were just that. Someone's product of love. In the new world, after the day of darkness, children became a commodity. This was because the disease that had infected humans and made them turn into the creatures we so eloquently refer to as zombies affected 99.99% of children. Studies showed, this was when there were still studies to be had, that it only affected about 96% of citizens above the age of 15. This made children a delicacy, a chance to repopulate the world one human at a time. A modern-day Adam or Eve. 4% of the world's population went unaffected, except for the after effects. After the day of darkness, everyone resorted to killing each other to preserve any food or shelter that still remained. For all Mark knew, he and Lucas were the only 2 people remaining on Earth. That's what he thought, until 3 nights ago. Are we going to see Mommy in heaven when we get there? Lucas asked innocently. Yeah, buddy, Mark said glumly. We sure are. She's waiting for us. I wish she didn't have to be there. I wish she was here with us right now. Me too, pal. Me too. They sat in silence, listening only to the crickets singing their nightly ballad and the sound of the spoons scraping against the bottom of the cans of beans. But then, crack. A twig snapped. Mark's ears perked up, but then the silence continued. He glanced around, and all he could see was darkness. His eyes stopped on his boy, his sweet, innocent boy, who didn't deserve this life. He deserved to be a normal kid, to grow up with parents who loved him, in a house with a swing set and video games on the TV. Instead, they were always on the run, preserving their lives. A tear formed in his eye as he stared, watching that wonderful boy spoon a mouthful of beans into his mouth. His son made eye contact and gave a smile, but then his face instantly turned to a look of terror. Mark noticed movement in the bushes behind Lucas and assumed Lucas's terror was brought upon by noticing movement behind Mark. Before he could turn around to see, Mark was knocked out cold. He wasn't out for long, maybe a minute or two, and when he came to the group of pillagers were leaving, they had the boy hog-tied, and two burly men carried him like he was a pig on a stake. Mark went to jump up, but a knee met his back. At least he thought it was a knee. Instant pain struck him. He turned over to see the man's face, and that's when his world started to blur. He had a small knife protruding from his side. The boy's ours, motherfucker, said the gangly man who was missing 2 teeth. Go to the clearing now. Mark passed out. That had been 3 days ago. He had spent the last 3 days trying to follow the tracks of the group who had taken his son. He was slow-paced, having limited flexibility and immense pain from the gash in his back. The knife missed any major arteries or nerves, and mostly just caught the fat muscles. Still, the pain was excruciating. But Mark knew if he let too much time pass, the trail would run cold, and he'd lose it forever. Along with his boy, the tracks had led him to a small town. He found a tree to hide behind while he could scope it out. In his satchel, which he was fortunate enough to still have, he always stored his gear 50 or so yards away from his campsite, just in case. He had a pair of binoculars, which he took out and used to get a better view of the town. He knew he'd have to wait another hour or so until darkness fell, but he only saw 5 people, and he thought under the darkness of night he could take 5 people out. He would be reunited with his son soon enough. Night came, and he readied himself. He carried a long machete which was stained brownish red, having been used on one too many people since the day of darkness. Too many people that Mark hated to admit. He slowly approached the town from the south side, where he saw only one guard. This would be the most crucial. They had firearms on them, and he knew if he could take down the first guard quietly, he'd have a firearm of his own if needed. He waited patiently as the guard did their stroll backwards and forwards. Once he knew the pattern, he took a deep breath and waited for his opportunity. After he heard 3 steps, he knew the guard would turn, and that's when he would pounce. 1. He thought about his wife. 2. He thought about Lucas, scared and alone. 3. He knew it was time to pounce. Mark jumped out from behind the wall, and the guard turned around instantly. The guard went to scream, but Mark brought the machete down rapidly into his neck, spraying a fresh coat of blood all over Mark's face. The guard went down without a minimal thud. Mark picked up the AR-15 rifle and slung it over his shoulder. He was just getting started. Taking down the next 2 was easier than he anticipated. When someone had a gun and they were standing guard, you'd assume they were a trained soldier. Sometimes, even Mark forgot that they were living in this desolate world. And these were just normal people who had normal jobs and normal lives before the world went to shit. He himself had been a CPA, and now he'd branded himself a modern-day Rambo. The world had changed, and everyone had to adjust. These 2 guards, 1 man and 1 woman, didn't even realize he was there until it was too late. He had grabbed the woman's mouth from behind while swinging the machete upwards towards the man, slicing from the bottom of his protruding gut right up to his chin, killing him instantly when it sliced his jugular. The woman fought, but Mark snapped her neck, killing her instantly too. 3 down and 2 to go. He had to find Lucas. Slowly, he tiptoed around the town, looking into empty house windows and around corners, until he finally saw a fire pit with 3 people sitting around it. They were enjoying dinner and joking and laughing. He recognized 2 of them immediately. The 2 bigger ones were the 2 who carried Lucas away. They had Lucas somewhere, and he intended to find out where. He approached them from behind. AR-15 raised at the biggest of the 3, set in his sights. He got as close as he dared before making his grand entrance. As soon as he stopped, he shot the tall guard sitting on the left of the fire straight through the head. The other 2 were startled. "Don't fucking move!" Mark shouted. They didn't. Both men raised their hands, but didn't dare turn around to face their attacker. Mark flanked them on the left, rifle raised, and aimed at them until they were in eyesight. "Where's my son?" the third man said. "Mister, I don't know what." Mark shot him in the forehead, and his body collapsed with a thud. The remaining man, the second guard, perked up stolidly, trying not to show any fear or weakness. "Where is he?" Mark said, anger trembling in his voice. His finger was pressed on the trigger with enough force that at any second the bullet could discharge. But he stood firm. "Where?" The man picked up a piece of meat from his place and took a bite. He smiled at Mark, then said, "This was his leg. It's delicious." Mark instantly felt numb. They had cooked and ate his son. This is what the world had come to. No, he couldn't believe it. The man was just trying to mess with him. And then the man started to laugh, slightly at first, then harder and more wildly. "No," Mark said, and pulled the trigger. The man's top half of his head was ripped off, and he fell backwards. Mark approached and stood over his body, then emptied the clip bullet by bullet into the man's chest. He was sobbing as he did it, and continued to pull the trigger until he heard that fateful click, click, click of an empty chamber. He fell to his knees, and that's when he felt the pang of steel press against the back of his head. The man who stabbed him, the gangly man with 2 teeth missing, was pressing a pistol against the back of his head. "Well, looky here. Back from the dead, I see. And from the looks of it, you're angry and taking your vengeance." The man looked around at all his dead friends. "That wasn't very nice. Now was it? You killed my son, cooked him, and ate him," Mark pleaded through tears. "And I'm supposed to be nice?" He was breathing heavily, angry and full of adrenaline. "Ate I am? Boy, we ain't cannibals here." Mark got a spark of hope, reached stealthily into his ankle holder, and pulled out the 8-inch knife he kept there. When he could tell the man was distracted, looking at his dead friends, Mark dove right, swinging his left arm up to hit the man's arm and knock the gun away. At the same time, he came across with his right hand, slicing at the man's legs, instantly causing the man to go down shrieking in pain. Mark jumped on his back, wrestled him fully to the ground, and grabbed a tuft of his hair. He yanked back and pressed his blade against the man's neck. "Your man just admitted to it," he screamed. "He was trying to get under your skin," the man pleaded. "Please, I'll tell you where he is. Just don't kill me. Please." Mark pressed the knife harder against the skin, and the man could feel the cold steel pierce the thin skin in his neck. "You have 10 seconds, Mark said. "How do I know you ain't just gonna kill me after I tell you?" the man asked. "You have my word. Tell me where he is, and I'll let you go." 6, 5, 4. Okay. About a mile south of here, there's a village. A bigger village. They have goods that we never had access to. We traded him this morning for food and booze. It includes that whole pig you saw my man eating over there. How do I know you're telling the truth? Mark asked, pressing the blade slightly harder. My pocket, the man choked. There's a written bill of sale in my pocket. Mark loosened his grip, and the man let in a deep gasp of air. It includes 2 more restocks of supplies over the next 3 months. Your boy was worth a hell of a lot to a village looking to build the world over again. He heaved, trying to catch his breath, and coughed. Mark reached into the man's pocket and grabbed the paper. He was telling the truth. How many people in the village? Mark asked. I don't know. 20, 25 maybe? Mark had what he needed. Take the paper and use it to barter for your... Mark slit the man's throat before he could finish. Blood oozed from his throat at a rate Mark had never seen. The man went limp, and Mark stood up. He spit on the man's back. Go to the clearing, he said, then kicked the man's lifeless body. Lucas was alive, still lost, but alive as far as he knew. He was in a village a mile away, with 25 people guarding it. He'd need weapons. He'd need rest. He'd need courage. Mark gathered up all the weapons and ammo he could find in the town and brought them into one house. He cleaned everything, loaded everything, and made his plan. He'd sleep, heal, and rest. Then tomorrow, he'd get his son. One way or another, he'd get his son. Search, and you might find. Search, and you might find. I am an independent journalist, living in a world of news spilling out at an unprecedented rate in the history of mankind. Much of it was false, without any factual evidence. Lies and untruths seemed to be the norm. Each morning, when I opened my computer or picked up the mail, it took a good hour to sort through the garbage. Today, I had a pleasant surprise. An invitation from an old friend to spend a quiet weekend in his country manor. It was about 2 years ago since I last saw him at Penelope's wedding. We had a bet their marriage would not last 5 years. As far as I knew, she was still married. But she remained a very demanding woman. At the university, I had been a very close friend of George Webster. He was now Sir Webster, a member of Parliament. He was a pleasant chap, with a head of white hair and a round, chubby face with distinctive blue eyes. He had a corpulent body, no doubt, from hearty meals and plenty of drinking. His wife was quite the opposite, with a slender profile and reddish hair arranged like a beehive on the top of her head. She had a wicked sense of humor and was always enjoyable company. I was looking forward to a quiet weekend in the country. I arrived an hour before dinner to face a manor built 200 years ago. George inherited it from his parents. I remember the parties here when we were students at the university. His parents were great hosts, always inviting a selection of pretty young girls. I believe they wanted to make sure George meets the young people they approved of. George came leaping to the front door and hugged me with great affection. I will get the maid to show your room. No need to dress for dinner. We will only be us three. Come down to the drawing room in half an hour for cocktails. While George handed me a whiskey, I warmly embarrassed his wife. Nothing had changed. The beehive on the top of her head was still in place. I am always delighted to be served at dinner with good food and stimulating conversation. His wife left us the moment an excellent cigar and cognac were forthcoming. Once George's cigar was lit, he spoke. David, do you remember that time at the university I taught you how to catch butterflies? Sure I do. Why are you still an ardent collector and improving your collection? If I remember correctly, you were obsessed with butterflies. Bring your cognac and come with me. I want to show you something. We went down a small passage. At the end was a locked door. George took a key from his pocket, opened the door, and switched on a series of overhead spotlights. I have never seen such a beautiful show of hundreds of butterflies with their vibrant and delicate colors. The room was about 26 square meters, with waist-high side oak cabinets surrounding all the three walls. The upper three walls were covered with three large frames of magnificent pinned butterflies. I could see each frame was labeled with the title of 3 continents: the Americas, Europe, and Africa. I stood there, bewildered, completely stunted by the beauty of the room. As I walked in, I noticed a large, comfortable couch in the middle of the room. It was unusual in that it had 2 sides, allowing one to change their position in order to view all sides of the room. In front of each side of the couch was a coffee table. I turned around to view the wall in which the door was positioned. The wall was covered with a wall-to-wall library. George suggested we should sit down. As you notice, I specialize in rare butterflies from 3 land masses. You will notice there is a gape of 2 butterflies in the Americas display. 1 the European and 2 on the African. Under each butterfly, I always mark the date and place it was found. According to my book collection and extensive research, these butterflies represent extremely rare spies. I like to think it is one of the world's greatest collections, representing hundreds of hours of travel and research. To be complete, I need to fill in the 5 missing specimens. George, it is totally amazing. The display of these remarkably beautiful creatures makes one feel belittled when compared with the creations of nature. What's in the drawers below? More butterflies that I thought were interesting on my travels searching for that rare specimen, as I am known throughout the world as a collector. I have a network of people that inform me that they have seen a rare butterfly. The world has many well-informed amateurs interested in these creatures. In fact, last week, I had a call from a friend in Zimbabwe saying that a flame-bordered carex had been sighted near Victoria Falls. This is one of the extremely rare butterflies I am missing in my collection. Unfortunately, at this time, I cannot leave for Victoria Falls. David, do you want a free 2-week holiday in Zimbabwe? I don't understand.
So,
Well, you could go and spend a few days looking for this rare butterfly. I know you are very careful in netting butterflies without damaging them. The whole trip would be my expense. Supposing I did net this rare butterfly, how would I get it out of the country? No doubt these creators are protected by strict export laws. You are right, and collectors like me have to be very careful. In the case of Zimbabwe, I would ask you to deliver the specimen to a friend in the capital, Harare. He will then carefully pin it into an old collection of common butterflies that Victorian families love to collect and frame. He will then ship it out to a London antique dealer. This rare butterfly, mixed in an old frame, will go unnoticed by the customs. I can see you are well versed in extracting these treasures from various countries. I have never been to Victoria Falls. They say it is one of the world's spectacular sights. If I agree to go, would there be somebody there to meet me? Yes, my contact would meet you at Victoria's airport and take you to your hotel. He will be your guide the whole trip. I suggest you spend 2 days as a tourist, and then the next 8 days exploring the forest where the butterfly was sighted. If not found in 8 days, take the plane back home. If you, by a miracle, manage to capture it, I ask you to fly to Harare and give it to my friend there. At this point, I recommend you fly home from there. If an overnight stay is required in the capital, my friend will arrange it. These trips are always a gamble, but to add this butterfly to my collection, it is worth the cost of the gamble. We collectors are brain-damaged human beings, obsessed to complete the items we collect in a satisfying and logical manner. Of course, I will supply all the necessary equipment. You will need to consult your doctor about a trip of this nature so that he can supply you with all the necessary preventive medicines. No visa at this point is required for Zimbabwe. So are you game? Just a minute. Let me look at my diary. Yes, I think I could go next week. Is that a yes? I will need 24 hours to make a decision, as I have some commitments next week. If you do go, I suggest you go through Johannesburg and then on to Victoria Falls. Leave the return ticket open, as you might want to fly back through Harare. My man, his name is Robin, born near Victoria Falls, will be with you your whole time in Zimbabwe. It had been several years since I was last in Africa. My knowledge of the various countries on the continent was mainly in the north, so to travel to the south would be an interesting venture. As I sat enjoying a first-class meal on British Airways, it did cross my mind that maybe George had already planned my visit before I was asked down for a weekend. No doubt, his thoughts were that a free trip to Victoria would not be turned down. I also realized dedicated collectors will employ any means available to achieve their ambitions. In my mind's eye, I could see him spending evenings in his butterfly room, completely transfixed by the beauty of these creators. No doubt this room is where George found a haven of peace from his responsibilities of his daily existence. These butterflies not only were creators of extreme beauty, but represented for George a lifetime of dedicated research and traveling to far-off lands to find the rare specimen. At the university, he had always been an avid butterfly collector, but I never realized the depth of his passion. I remember enjoying myself on various county outings looking for interesting butterflies. Now, in an artful way, he has got me involved. He must have thought I might be smitten by the activity. The truth of my interest in this trip was Victoria Falls. Naturally, if by some chance I found the rare butterfly, it would give me a warm feeling of self-esteem. As the air hostess passed, I ordered a glass of champagne and toasted to my success. The African journey had begun. First to admire the falls and to search for the missing rare specimen. Johannesburg Airport was vast, obviously with no restriction on land constraints. No doubt, copied from the American and European textbook. You had to walk through large shopping malls filled with many life-size copies of wild animals made out of various woods, clay, and other materials. Sizes and prices for all comers. For a second, I had a vision that this extensive animal kingdom became alive and started to enjoy the sweet human flesh of passengers awaiting planes. Interesting thought, but a chilling turn of events. At the airport, I found Robin waiting. The first thing I noticed as we drove towards the hotel was the soft and seductive African daylight with a warm weather that seemed to envelop you in its arms. Also, through the car window, I was able to admire a series of magnificent trees unique to Africa. About 10 kilometers from Victoria Falls, we turned up a small country road to the hotel. There, I found a little patch of paradise. It corresponded to the photographs shown on the internet. Only 16 bungalows that stretched from a central lodge. I was curious to see the rooms that were described as about 150 square meters with bath and showing facilities. Lounging space with a king-sized bed area, protected by a mosquito net. The first time I experienced sleeping under a mosquito net was in Barbados years ago. In those days, it just hung over the bed and needed pulling down. Of course, I was unaware of this procedure. The next morning, I had just one big mosquito bite. Funny how certain circumstances, you quickly learn to use things properly. Back to the hotel, the entrance hall and lounges were decorated to an ambiance of yesteryear. Spacious, elegant, and tasteful. The smiling staff treated me as if I had just come home after a trip up country. I had a vision of wearing riding boots, putting my feet up, and asking someone to pull them off. Before I was taken to my room, we sat down with a cup of tea. George's man, Robin, explained why I was here to take photos of butterflies for a London magazine. Before the shooting commenced, we would take 2 days to see the falls. While drinking our tea, the hotel's hostess kindly explained that to walk the length of the falls is a 2.4 miles walk with several stops to admire the view. Also to dry out from the spray and mist generated by the falls. As it was the rainy season, the falls would be near their maximum flow of 2,800 cubic meters of water per second, as opposed to 300 metric cubes in the dry season. We decided to visit on the first 2 mornings. Now to the room. As we entered, I had the feeling of being introduced to Zimbabwe under British rule. This was the state of play. Everything and everybody has their place. I walked through the room to the balcony at the far end, noticing on my way a bar full of all the drinks imaginable. I opened the glass screen windows to experience the Africa of one's dreams. It was a small valley running down to a water hole. I quickly realized the hotel was on a slight rise, protecting it from the multitude of animals slowly grazing their way to water. One could not ask for a more idyllic view. I was to spend a few hours on this balcony, just observing the animal kingdom going about their daily lives. The room was delightful and serviced with all the facilities to make your stay a pleasing memory. I had a bizarre feeling that for the privileged, Africa must have been a very pleasant place. The next morning, heralded by a dawning sun, breakfast on the terrace with interesting choices of food. Robin drove me to see the falls. 20 minutes drive, we were in the Victoria Falls, parking after being heralded by African folks dancing at the gate. Armed with waterproof capes, we set off towards the falls. The first encounter was the noise, the next the spry, and then through the trees we saw the watershed. It is a sight so awesome, it literally took your breath away. The beauty, the palm hour, and the light and mist reflected from the cascade of water is frightening. I was inspired to write a poem in acknowledgement of its beauty. I knew a magazine in London that might be interested in publishing it. The Falls, Victoria, Zimbabwe on the horizon. Across those vast lands, I saw a wispy sight of mist raising for the earth. No apparent panic from the wildlife. A fire it is not. The nearer I get, a rainbow arching is beauty skywards. Then I heard the rumbling sound like thunder. There, covered in spay, is a mystery and magic that unfolds. Gigantic, awesome water falls from majestic heights, falls in torrents of spectacular proportions, careers deep into the river below. The beauty of the falls is in its majestic power, a never-ending cascade of turbulent water. This power dominates your mind and soul. Torrents of water flow through your veins. You are left exhausted and on occasions wet from the spray. One feels very small, experiencing nature's magnificence. The original explorers never saw the falls from the air. The mighty river in its majesty is a glorious prelude before it turns into the eternal beauty of the falls. One visit is not enough for the tranquility of your spirit. The second visit, the falls were shrouded in mist and stray. Then, by the hand of God, the curtains opened, all her power and glory exposed to the naked eye. In bended knee, you threw your arms to heaven in admiration. We spent the next day at the falls. Their splendor and magic had the same force of attraction as the previous day. On our third day, Robin took me to the forest where the charakt had been sighted. There were plenty of butterflies, and I practiced catching a few. When I let them go, I enjoyed watching them fly into the magnificent trees. Robin was most amused. He told me he had spent many days with George, chasing butterflies. It was my fourth day in the forest, after spending many hours walking and watching the constant movement of these colorful creatures, that we saw the butterfly that George hungered for to complete his collection. There it was, on a branch, enjoying the evening sun. I took a deep breath, moved slowly and quietly forward. All my practicing of using the butterfly net paid off. George had provided me with a special prepare box to keep the precious creator in. That night at the hotel, we had an excellent dinner with champagne. The next morning, we left for Harare. Robin and I found with difficulty George's friend in a scheduled part of the capital. He was a taxidermist, owning a store full of the various wildlife found in Zimbabwe. Once, he saw the butterfly that George had already contacted him about. His face lit up with excitement. I never thought you would find it. Incredible. My friend George will be in seventh heaven. Later that day, I said goodbye to Rodin and gave him a handsome tip for all his kindness and help. Sitting on the long flight to London, I thought about my little adventure. 2 days as a tourist, visiting one of the world's great wonders, was like a dream. Then, a few days tramping through the forest, searching for a rare butterfly, had the thrilling flavor of the chase. Completing my mission was a very satisfying end. 3 weeks later, when picking up the morning mail, I noticed a letter from George. He told me everything was in order. There are no words to thank you. When you have a moment, come down to see us. He enclosed a handsome check for my intervention. David Nutt, December 2024. The quiet island. When Flo heard the car approaching, she darted off the road and crouched low behind an olive tree. She didn't dare move. At 13, she knew how dangerous it was to be out here alone. The car rattled past, the sound fading in the distance, leaving only the hum of crickets. As she stood up, the ground beneath her tilted like the deck of a sinking ship, and she had to clutch the tree for balance. Another dizzy spell. They'd been hitting her all morning. She needed to find food, and soon she stepped back onto the road and started walking. After about an hour, as the sun crept over the mountains, Flo spotted an orange grove a few paces off the road. The ground was littered with fruit, but most had passed their best. She saw a couple of ripe ones still clinging to their branches, and after a few attempts, she managed to jump high enough to reach them. She sat down in the dappled shade and demolished the fruits. The juices ran down her chin, but she didn't care. She hadn't eaten real food in weeks. After a short rest and a brief pee in the bushes, Flo continued along the road. She didn't know how much further she'd have to walk, but she knew that so long as she kept the mountains behind her, she'd be all right. By mid-morning, Flo had given up wiping the sweat from her brow, surrendering her eyes to the stinging. She wanted to rest, but knew that the heat would only get worse as the day wore on. Besides, her parents would have surely woken up by now and discovered she had gone. Would they come looking for her? Would they be brave enough? Could they be brave enough? Flo pressed on, the trees thinning until there was nothing besides a few fragrant shrubs and yellowed grass. She grabbed a handful of thyme and rubbed it with her fingers, the sharp scent cutting through the dry air. Her eyes widened when she noticed the view ahead of her. "There it is," she said, running a hand through her hair, which was now thick and greasy. In front of her, not half a mile away, was the sparkling waters of the Mediterranean Sea. "Eat that, Duke of Edinburgh," she said, and laughed. In the distance, she could make out a small fishing village, with its rocky pier and shallow sandy beach. There were no boats at the pier, nor any out at sea. There were no planes in the sky, either. It was all so eerie. Flo had arrived in Crete less than 2 months ago. She'd been brimming with excitement for her first holiday abroad. But now, after everything that had happened, it seemed like a distant memory. She paused for a moment, her gaze drifting to a tiny island not far from the shore. It was too small to be inhabited by people, but she could see specks of birds circling above. She wondered if it was possible to swim to the island. Back in school, she'd earned her 200-meter badge, which she was quite proud of, though this distance looked at least twice that. Pulling herself away from the view, she followed the road. It twisted and turned and descended toward the town. And eventually, the surface transitioned from gravel to tarmac. The first building Flo came across was a row of holiday villas, each a different pastel color. She approached one of them, standing on her tiptoes so she could see over the stone wall and into the garden. There was a swimming pool, but the water was murky green. A body floated face down in the center. She wandered over to the next villa, which didn't have a wall, and was relieved to find that the swimming pool was empty. Unfortunately, the sunbed next to it was not. A woman lay flat on the bed, her arms dangling on either side. She wore a black bikini, and her spilled guts glistened in the sunlight, festering and dissected by the feral cats. Flo turned to leave, but after a few paces, her morbid curiosity got the better of her. She glanced back and stiffened. The woman was sitting bolt upright. Flo swallowed hard and hurried along the road. Behind her, she heard a low gurgle, wet and bubbling. The village was only a short walk from the villa. It had a central road that led directly to the seafront. Along the road were numerous shops that sold what her dad would call tourist tat. Trying her luck, Flo stepped into one of them at random. Inside, the air was thick and stale. Flo scanned the shelves, hoping for something, anything, edible. The place, however, had been ransacked. What was left had little use to her now. Fridge magnets, postcards, swimming goggles, ceramic figures, tourist guides offering the hidden gems of Crete, handcrafted wooden coasters and honey dippers. And there, right at the back of the store, perched high on the top shelf, stood a large jar of stuffed green olives. Flo didn't care much for olives, but it was not the time to be picky. She walked down the aisle toward the shelves and reached upward, but it was no good. She needed to get higher. She found an empty crate nearby. Using it as a step, she touched the base of the jar with her fingertips. It would have to do. She began to edge the jar when something stirred from somewhere inside the store. Flo turned her head, her eyes darting from aisle to aisle, searching for the source of the sound. Nothing. All right, she thought. Just grab the olives and get the hell out of here. She continued maneuvering the jar, inch by inch, until she could get her hands under it. Got it. She lowered the jar and tucked it safely under her arm. As she climbed down, her vision suddenly blurred. A million black flies swarming behind her eyelids. The ground seemed to shift beneath her feet, and the next thing she knew, she was lying flat on her back. Dazed, Flo tilted her head to one side, her gaze lingering on the smashed jar of olives beside her. The brine pooling across the floor. Something crunched over the glass. Flo snapped her head up and gasped. A slender, crooked figure was shuffling toward her, walking over the shards of glass. She was an elderly woman. Her skin was pale and torn like tissue paper. Her sunken eyes were a clouded gray and unblinking. Flo scrambled to her feet, scoring her palms on the broken glass as she stood, though she barely felt the pain. The woman inched closer. Her jaw hung open, her lips cracked and bloodless. A faint groan rose from her throat, like a rusted hinge. The old woman stood between Flo and the exit. Flo hesitated. Her eyes flickered between the woman and the doorway. She picked up the crate and shoved it into the elderly woman. The woman staggered back, arms flailing. Flo tossed the crate aside and made a break for the exit. She was almost there when the light from the doorway darkened. A hulking creature stepped into the store. It stood 6 feet tall, its chest and shoulders matted with hair. Blistered skin peeled away in leathery strips, scorched by the heat. The creature gave a deep, sickening groan as it lumbered toward Flo. Behind it, more zombies filtered in. 2, 3, 4. So many. Flo stepped backward, but slipped on a smear of sun cream, landing hard on the floor. She yelled in pain. She grabbed the shelves and pulled herself up, knocking over a stand of sunglasses that clattered to the floor. Flo spun around and froze. The elderly woman stood at the end of the aisle, blocking her path. "No," Flo whispered. A wave of hopelessness overwhelmed her. She pressed her back against the wall, her body trembling. The undead closed in. Flo squeezed her eyes shut, bracing herself, waiting for the inevitable. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4. She opened her eyes. The zombie, the big one, stood in front of her. The stench was suffocating. Flo held her breath, remaining completely still. She watched with confusion as it turned its back to her, looking down at where the sunglasses had landed. The others slowed too. Flo frowned. What was happening? She waved her hand in front of one of them. It didn't even flinch. They must have been attracted to the sound, Flo thought. They're not interested in me. Flo slipped past the mob. They looked almost as confused as Flo felt, and stepped out into the blinding sun. I'm invisible. For the next couple of hours, Flo embraced her newfound superpower. She raided the shops and managed to scavenge a box of honey-soaked pastry nests and 2 cans of Greek lemonade. She consumed the lot in one sitting before moving to other shops, trying on dresses and sun hats and expensive jewelry. She grew strangely accustomed to the zombies, now that they didn't seem to see her as a meal. When she grew tired, Flo headed to the beach. She laid a towel on an empty sunbed and sat down. A few zombies rested on nearby beds, cooking in the heat. Another was crawling across the sand. A cockroach scuttled across its back. A young boy who looked to be of a similar age to Flo, laid flat on a paddleboard that had washed up to shore. A little girl, just a toddler, sat upright in the shallow water. She was wearing 2 armbands, but one had deflated. The gentle waves kept pushing her over, but she sprung back up, a loose tooth, unsteady, but clinging into place. Flo kicked off her shoes and let her toes sink into the sand. She pulled out a bottle of sun lotion from her tote bag and applied it to her bare arms and legs, careful not to get it on the plaster covering her left ankle. She dried her hands on the towel, then pulled off the plaster. No need to hide it anymore. The bite mark had swollen since yesterday, but she could still make out the dental impression of the old man in her ankle. It reminded her of the clay impressions she'd had made for her braces a few months prior. She sighed, then laid back on the sunbed. It was stupid. She was stupid. She'd gone and gotten herself bitten and ruined everything. 2 swallows danced in the sky. Flo watched as they flew out to sea toward the island. Flo closed her eyes, her mind spinning. I had no choice. I had to run away. I couldn't let them see me like this. She tried to focus on the sounds. The fizz of the sea foam, the rise of the crickets, the chirp of the birds, the soft groans of the undead. Flo drifted to sleep. When Flo woke, the shadows were stretched long across the sand, and the sound of the crickets had died back. Flo glanced at her ankle. Her stomach twisted. Dark purple veins had formed around the wound. She traced them with trembling fingers, her chest tightening. Not long now. I'm sorry, Flo whispered, tears forming in her eyes. I didn't mean for this to happen. She pulled the towel from under her and wrapped it over her shoulders. She hugged her knees to her chest, shivering despite the lingering warmth. Everything ached. Ached like it did when she'd had the COVID vaccine last autumn. She pictured herself as a zombie, imagining her eyes turning gray and wandering about aimlessly. She imagined seeing her parents and seeing the pain and horror on their faces when they recognized her. Then she imagined her younger brother, his eyes lighting up when he saw her, too young to understand. She reached out to him, as if to hug him, but instead pulled him close and opened her mouth to bite. No. Stop it. Flo stood up, staggering to the water's edge. I can't let that happen. I won't. She went over to the paddleboard. She tipped it, letting the body of the boy slip into the water. She climbed onto the board, her hands shaking as she picked up the paddle. The sea stretched out before her, painted in hues of pink and orange, and on the horizon was the island. She pushed off, letting the board drift from the shore. This was where she was meant to go all along. She knew this now. To the island. It's going to be okay, she whispered to the waves. The island loomed ahead, its rocky cliffs sharp against the twilight sky. Gulls cried overhead, their calls echoing across the water. I can't hurt them now. The burial of the bottle. It was a hot summer evening when the doorbell rang at Steve's residence. Carol, a young and ambitious journalist, stood on the porch, her eyes filled with a mixture of determination and unease. She had been investigating a sensitive case for months, and the trail had led her to this unassuming suburban home. As the door opened, Carol was greeted by a middle-aged man, his face etched with a weary expression. "I'm Carol, the journalist from the Daily Tribune. I was hoping to speak with you about a matter of great importance." The man hesitated for a moment, then ushered her inside. "Come in, please. I've been expecting you." Carol followed him into the living room, her senses heightened, aware of the gravity of the situation. He gestured for her to take a seat, and she obliged, her notebook and pen at the ready. "I know why you're here," he began, his voice low and somber. "The truth is, I've been dreading this day for a long time, but I suppose it's time to finally come clean." Carol leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the man before her. "I'm listening. Whatever you tell me, I promise to handle it with the utmost care and discretion." He took a deep breath and began to recount the events that had unfolded years ago, events that had haunted him ever since. It had started with a simple mistake, a moment of carelessness that had spiraled out of control. Steve, a respected accountant in the community, had been tasked with overseeing a large financial transaction for a client. In a moment of weakness, he had succumbed to temptation and diverted a portion of the funds into his own personal account. At first, he had justified it to himself, telling himself that it was a temporary loan, that he would pay it back before anyone noticed. But as time passed, the guilt and fear began to consume him. He knew that if the truth were to come to light, it would not only ruin his career, but also shatter the trust of his family and the community he had worked so hard to build. As the months turned into years, Mr. Steve lived in a constant state of anxiety, always looking over his shoulder, terrified that the truth would eventually come to light. He became withdrawn, his once vibrant personality replaced by a haunted, guarded demeanor. "I thought I could get away with it," he confessed, his voice trembling. "I thought I could make it right. But the more I tried to cover it up, the deeper I sank. I became a prisoner in my own life, always afraid that the walls were closing in." Carol listened intently, her heart heavy with the weight of the man's confession. She could see the toll it had taken on him, the years of guilt and fear etched into his features. "What happened next?" she asked gently, her pen poised to capture every detail. Mr. Steve's gaze drifted to the window, as if he were reliving the events in his mind. "It all came crashing down one day when my client discovered the discrepancy in the accounts. He threatened to go to the authorities, and I knew I had to act fast. He paused, his hands trembling slightly. I made a decision that I will regret for the rest of my life. I couldn't let everything I had built be destroyed, so I made the client disappear. Carol's eyes widened in shock, and she felt a chill run down her spine. You mean you killed him? The gravity of his words hung in the air, and Carol found herself struggling to process the information. She had come here expecting a story of financial impropriety, but this was something far more sinister. She was so caught up in the moment that she did not hear the two men come into the room from the kitchen. Before she knew it, one of the men had put his hand over her mouth and nose, suffocating her as they were putting her body in the back of the truck. They heard a voice telling them, "You know what to do." The sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty road as the two men in the battered pickup truck navigated the winding path through the vast expanse of the desert. The air was thick with the scent of gasoline and the faint hint of something more sinister. Albert gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white as he focused intently on the road ahead. His partner, Bill, sat silently in the passenger seat, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Neither of them spoke, the only sound filling the cab being the rumble of the engine and the occasional crunch of gravel beneath the tires. As they drove, the landscape around them transformed from the sparse, scrubby vegetation of the desert's edge to the vast, undulating dunes that stretched out as far as the eye could see. The heat was oppressive, and sweat beaded on their brows, but they pressed on, their destination etched in their minds. Albert's thoughts drifted to the events that had led them to this moment. It had been a job like any other, a simple task that they had carried out countless times before. But this time, something felt different. Perhaps because they had never killed a woman before. Now, they were tasked with the grim duty of disposing of the body, a task that weighed heavily on their minds. They had chosen this remote location, far from prying eyes, to carry out their macabre task. The desert, with its endless expanse and unforgiving terrain, was the perfect place to bury their secret. As the truck rumbled on, Albert's gaze drifted to the rearview mirror, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of pursuit. But the road behind them was empty, save for the occasional tumbleweed that danced across the asphalt. The minutes ticked by, and the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the dunes. Finally, Albert spotted a small, weathered sign in the distance, indicating their turnoff. He slowed the truck, steering it off the main road and onto a narrow, winding path that led deeper into the desert. The going was rough, the truck bouncing and lurching over the uneven terrain. But Albert navigated it with the skill of a seasoned driver, his eyes fixed on the task at hand. Bill remained silent, his hands gripping the door handle as they navigated the treacherous path. After what felt like an eternity, the truck finally came to a stop in a small, secluded valley. The men stepped out, their muscles aching from the long drive. They surveyed the area, their eyes scanning for any signs of life or prying eyes. Satisfied that they were alone, they set to work. Grabbing a shovel from the back of the truck, they began to dig, their movements methodical and efficient. The sand was hot beneath their feet, and sweat poured down their faces as they worked in silence. The sound of the metal blade cutting through the hard-packed earth echoed through the valley. The only sound breaking the eerie silence as they dug, their thoughts drifted to the life they had taken, the weight of their actions bearing down on them. They had both been in this line of work for years, hardened by the violence and the constant threat of danger. But this was different. The hole grew deeper, the pile of displaced soil growing ever higher. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the desired depth. They both hesitated for a moment, staring down into the darkness. But then, without a word, carefully, they lowered the body into the grave, their movements slow and deliberate. Once the body was in place, they began to fill the hole, their shovels biting into the earth with each thrust. The task was arduous, the hot sun beating down on them as they worked. But they pressed on, driven by the need to erase any trace of their crime. As the last of the soil was packed down, they stepped back, surveying their handiwork. The grave was indistinguishable from the surrounding landscape. The only sign of their presence, the faint tracks left by the truck. Satisfied that their task was complete, they turned their attention to the final step, the burial of the bottle. This was a ritual they had performed countless times before, a way to mark the end of a job and to ensure that their secret remained hidden. Carefully, they dug a small hole at the base of the grave, just large enough to accommodate the bottle. They placed it inside, the glass glinting in the fading light, and then covered it over, ensuring that no trace of their presence